Hello class, this is Demetrius Wilson again with Organizational Behavior. We are now on Chapter 10 and we are discussing conflict and negotiations. Two things that will never go away. There will always be conflict and there will always be negotiations. Our learning objectives for the chapter are understand the different types of conflict, understand the causes of conflict, understand the consequences of conflict, understand how to manage conflict effectively, understand the stages of negotiation process, understand how to avoid common negotiation mistakes, engage in conflict management and negotiation ethically, and understand cross-cultural differences in conflict and negotiation. This should be fun. Negotiation failure Pointcast, and here's a great example. Stalled negotiations cost Pointcast $443 million, ultimately being acquired by Idealab for a mere $7 million. They just missed their window of opportunity due to bad negotiations. Many dot-com startups of the 1990s consisted of little more than a few employees and a room full of servers. And if you obviously live in California or closer to the Inland Empire, you know that to be true. If you go down the 15 freeway, you'll see a lot of those companies that were in the midst of being built and just never came to fruition. So conflict, different types of conflict. You have intrapersonal, so that's conflict within a person. It arises when a person is uncertain about what is expected or wanted, or has a sense of being inadequate to the task, right? So that's conflict inside yourself. Interpersonal is conflict between two people. And intergroup is conflict that takes place among different groups, between a union and management, or between companies, such as companies that supply the same customer. Is conflict always bad? No. If you look at the chart and you see where performance is highest is when conflict's right there in the middle, because conflict stimulates new ideas, new ways of doing things, new ways of thinking. But if conflict is too high, if you go further down the scale, then you'll see that performance is going to get lower. Discussion questions, as always, go through those. Don't skip over them. I'm telling you, this is a key point. You want to discuss these with your family, friends, and classmates so that you get a good perspective of organizational behavior. So causes of conflict, and there are many. You have organizational structure, maybe the way the company's set up, limited resources. Hey, it's not enough staplers. I got the stapler and it's mine and I'm going to keep my red stapler. Task interdependence. Incompatible goals. Maybe your goals are not compatible with what you're doing. Personality differences, right? That'll always be there. People always get into arguments because their personalities clash, or maybe their personalities are exactly the same and that's the reason why they clash. And communication problems that will never go away either. All leading to that middle circle, blue circle of conflict. So what are the outcomes of conflict? Some are negative and some are positive. So the negative ones, you have increased stress and anxiety among individuals, which decreases productivity and creativity. Sometimes it's a little tense in the office. Feelings of being defeated and demeaned, which lowers individuals' morale and may increase turnover. They may leave the company, they may be sad about the situation. A climate of mistrust, which hinders the teamwork and cooperation necessary to get work done. Now, like I said, there are positive outcomes of conflict. You have consideration of a broader range of ideas resulting in a better, stronger idea. Surfacing of assumptions that may be inaccurate. Increased participation and creativity. And clarification of individual views that build learning, right? That's when you collaborate, you get together, and it's good conflict. Is your job at risk for workplace violence? As I indicated in one of the prior chapters, I've seen workplace violence and it's nothing that's too pretty. So dealing with people, yeah, it's at risk for workplace violence. So job characteristics and an example: caring for others either emotionally or physically in a nursing home, interacting with frustrated customers, retail sales, supervising others, if you're a manager, the risk is there, denying requests others make of you, customer service. And you guys, anybody who's done customer service, you know that to be so true. Is your job at risk for workplace violence? Being in high-risk situations. So job characteristic and example again. So you have dealing with valuables or exchanging money in banking, handling weapons, law enforcement, working with drugs, alcohol, or those under the influence of them, bartending. I've been there before and I can attest to that firsthand. Working nights or weekends, gas station attendants. Back to more discussion questions. Be sure to go over them. Look at these questions. What are some primary causes of conflict at work? I'm sure that you would have a laundry list that you can write down or talk about and discuss. So make sure that you're stopping and keying on these questions. So ways to manage conflict, and hopefully you're always managing conflict well. Change the structure, right? Remember we said the structure of the company could contribute to the conflict factors. How about you change the structure? Change the composition of the team. Maybe you need to change certain things like logistics or where people sit. Create a common opposing force. Say, hey, let's get together, stop fighting each other, and let's fight against the competition and get everybody on board. Consider majority rule and problem solve. Problem solve is the key. You have to get to the root cause of the problem and fix it. Don't ignore it. Conflict handling styles, and you see on the left side you have level of cooperation, and then on the right side or at the bottom you have level of competitiveness. So accommodation and avoidance are on the left side, right? So level of cooperation, accommodation, yeah, we'll go ahead and do what you need for us to do. And level of cooperation is low if you just avoid the situation. Compromise is right in the middle. All right, compromise is a adequate way to go about handling things. Competition, if it's just like, hey, I need this and there are 9 marbles and I need all 9. I can't give you 2 and I have 7. I need them all, right? So that's competition. That's where level of competitiveness is high and level of cooperation is very low. But when both when level of competitiveness is high and level of cooperation is also high, you have collaboration. Right? And that's when you want to get together and come up with something that's a win-win situation. And they speak about that in some of the human relations and organizational behavior classes. Like, are you a win-win person or are you a win-lose person? Meaning, I win, you lose. Or are you a person that looks for a solution that says we both win? Conflict handling styles, again, avoiding. I don't think there's a problem. I feel fine about how things are. Just ignoring it. Accommodating. If it's important to you, I can go along with it. Compromise, maybe we can both agree to give a little, right? Competition, this is what I want and I'm going to fight for it. And collaboration, the best, let's look at the bigger picture and find out how we can both get what we want. Which style is best? Body language can unintentionally fuel a conflict. Moving of your hands, scratching your head, folding your arms. There is no single quote-unquote right way to deal with conflict. Although many people have a single method they use most frequently, the best conflict handlers will adapt their style to the situation. Because you have different people. We're not all Stepford wives. We're not robots. Everybody's different. So in 2 people makes it even more different. So you have to adjust your way of dealing with conflict. Back to our organizational behavior toolbox. So you should have an ever-expanding toolbox, or you should have 10 small toolboxes by now. How can you stimulate healthy conflict? You can encourage people to raise issues and disagree with you or the status quo without fear of reprisal. So no problem. Hey, test it. Let's see. Let's see if the theory is right. Assign a devil's advocate to stimulate alternative viewpoints, right? So maybe you have somebody pretty negative in the group. They'll love to do that. Create a competition among teams, offering a bonus to the team that comes up with the best solution to a problem. That's a great idea. Sometimes, people will get hurt because maybe their idea wasn't the best, but great idea to stimulate new and innovative ideas. And build some ambiguity into the process. More discussion questions. Please be sure to go over them. Can't reiterate that enough. So like on the first one, it says list 3 ways to decrease a conflict situation. You need to know how to do those things. How do you bring everybody down from up at a rate alarm 10, which is the worst, back down to a 5, and then all the way back down to a 1 where you've resolved the situation. All right. So the 5 phases of negotiation. All right. So investigation, got to get your facts right. Determine your BATNA, right? That's going to be your best alternative solution, right? So that's, and we'll get to exactly what that definition means, but that's what you ideally want. Presentation, All right, like it'll say a little bit later, a lot of people think that presentation is the only thing that goes into negotiation, but it truly is, something that comes far after, because you've been doing a lot of investigating and figure out what your ideal solution is. Bargaining, right? If it's negotiation, yeah, you're probably not going to say, hey, I want this, and they're going to say, hey, great, sold. And then closure, close the deal, sign it, and move on. So 5 phases of negotiation. All phases of the negotiation process are important. The presentation is the one that normally receives the most attention, but the work done before that point is equally important, and you should all know that. So determining your BATNA, your best alternative to a negotiated agreement, right? It's your best alternative. If you don't know where you're going, you'll probably end up somewhere else. And that's a quote by Lawrence J. Peter. I'll probably take that one and send it out to my team next week. I try and pick up any good quotes that I can and send them out. And I will tell you, everybody doesn't like the quotes, and that's okay. I send it out because some do and some enjoy them. More for our organizational behavior toolbox. Your BATNA best practices. So number 1, brainstorm a list of alternatives. So you want to sit down. We want these alternatives, and these are our ideal ones. Let's make a list of them. Number 2, improve upon promising ideas and convert them, right? So find out what the best ideas are and then go ahead and convert them. Identify the most beneficial alternative, and that's what BATNA is all about. And remember that your BATNA may evolve over time. It may change. Right? You may be a sports star and now you're in even more demand because the other person on your team got hurt and you're in the contract negotiations. So now you want to say, hey, you know what? I want $10 million more. And number 5, don't reveal your BATNA to the other party, right? Keep it to yourself until you need to, kind of reveal your hand, and actually really don't need to reveal that part to them. You just need to negotiate and try and get to that BATNA or that best alternative. Negotiation strategies, you have the distributive approach, the traditional fixed pie, right? So think of a pie approach in which negotiators see the situation as a pie that they have to divide between them. I'll give you 50% and I'll take 50. I'll take 60, you take 40. Integrative approach is an approach to negotiation in which both parties look for ways to integrate their goals under a large umbrella, and that's more towards the side of collaboration. Back to our organizational behavior toolbox, 7 steps to negotiating a higher salary. As I've said before, I've actually done this before twice successfully, and actually helped someone else and coached them along to do it, and they were successful as well. And so I'm saying that my real world knowledge of requesting and negotiating a higher salary and what I'm looking at and reading from the PowerPoint or what's stated in the book, they definitely align. So that's always a good thing when the book doesn't necessarily contradict what's going on in the real world. So number 1, overcome your fear. Don't be afraid if you want to get paid. Step number 2, get the facts. You have to get your facts down. We don't want to talk about emotions. We're going to talk strictly about facts. Step 3, build your case. So you want to structure your case. I do these things. Other individuals that do these things are getting paid far more than me, and you just want to indicate exactly why you feel you should have get a raise, and you want to have a kind of a Trump type case. Know what you want. You have to know what you want. You have to know where you're going. You have to know what you need. Begin assertively, right? You have to be assertive. You can't be kind of sheepish about the whole situation. You have to go in and say, hey, this is what I want. This is what I need. Not in a cocky way, not in an aggressive way, but just assertive. Number 6, don't make the first offer, right? So you want to wait and listen more than talk. So you state where you stand, and then you just sit back and listen. All right. So people, when they talk too hastily, they'll mess up things, and you may end up getting the money that you wanted, but they're gonna kind of bluff you and see where you are. Avoiding common mistakes in negotiations, failing to negotiate, accepting the first offer, right? So it's like, we'll give you $70,000. Oh, great, sold. Sign on the dotted line. Having unrealistic expectations. I have a friend like that. You've been getting paid $60,000 and $65,000 for the last, like 10 years, and then you think you're going to get a raise to $80,000. That's not realistic. You don't get $15,000 or $10,000 raises. Letting past negative outcomes affect the present one. So let's say you got shot down before. That doesn't mean you're going to get shot down now. Hey, go for what you know and try your best. Getting overly emotional. That never helps. You need to talk about facts. Letting your ego get in the way. Though all of those things, they're common mistakes in negotiations, and you stay far away from them. Tips for negotiation success: you want to focus on agreement first. You want to be patient. This is key. You want to know whose reality you're dealing in. Learn what know what the deadlines are, and are you giving deadlines, and be comfortable with silence. That is the most important. Be okay. It's just like as if you were negotiating. You state your case, you say this is what I want, this is what I need, and you're silent. Right? It's nothing more to say. You don't have to be uncomfortable and say something just because the other person is thinking or noodling it through their brain. I know what I've said. I know my case. I've laid it all out on the table for you, and now I'm silent. All right? Thinking about what type of pancakes I'm going to have for breakfast Saturday morning. When all else fails, third-party negotiations. Third-party negotiations are intended to help avoid a formal trial or hearing. So you have arbitration and mediation and other resolution methods. So and it kind of they don't put on their negotiation because it's all part of negotiation. But in mediation, you have someone that comes in and says, "Hey, I think this is what the two of you should do." In arbitration, that's somebody comes in and makes an actual binding decision. So you guys decide like, "Hey, whatever this guy decides, we'll roll with what he has." So mediation, an outside third party. The mediator enters a situation with the goal of assisting the parties to reach an agreement. Arbitration, a process that involves bringing in a third party, the arbitrator, who has the authority to act as a judge and make a binding decision, which is the key, to which both parties must adhere. An arbitration-mediation, arbitrator makes a decision and places it in a sealed envelope. Both parties then work through mediation. If they cannot reach an agreement, the arbitrator's decision becomes binding. So those are our justices, last resort, judges resolve conflicts, right? You guys should all know who the justices and updated justices and judges are. You know it's time for a mediator when the parties are unable to find a solution themselves, personal differences are standing in the way of of a successful solution, the parties have stopped talking with one another, and obtaining a quick resolution is important. Got to get it done fast, and hey, we need to bring in a mediator. Ethics in negotiation, be honest, and you'll see that all throughout the course, and nowhere do they tell you to fabricate or change the truth. So just be honest, keep your promises, be sure to do what you say. That's big when you're a manager, and follow the platinum rule. So we've replaced the golden rule. Most people know the golden rule. The platinum rule takes it one step further. Treat others the way they want to be treated, not the way you want to be treated. Why does it matter how you want to be treated? Right? You want somebody to treat you the way that you want to be treated. That individual wants to be treated the way that they want to be treated, and they may not necessarily be the same. And negotiations around the globe, countries have different thresholds for conflict. For low threshold, and they prefer harmony, Japan and Korea. And this comes as no surprise. Higher threshold, conflict is acceptable, America and Germany. Various other differences exist among cultures, such as level of trust, negotiation rituals, how information exchanges are handled, and you see these examples, and how negotiations are viewed, Western versus other cultures. So you see different countries and how they handle things. Be sure to review that. Lastly, our discussion questions. You want to go over those again. If you have a great class partner, go over and bounce these ideas and these questions off of each other, and have a great time learning more about organizational behavior and digging into the details so that you can become a full-fledged expert. As always, have a good day, a great week, and I'll see you again for Chapter 11.